Hello and welcome back to my channel, Bookish Lady Night, where we get a look behind the book. Today I'm joined by the fabulous Angela Casella. She is the author of Highland Hills and Bad Luck Club, and her latest book, which is like one of my top, I actually just did a post on it for my 12 Days of Christmas, is The Thief Who Saved Christmas. So thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, I was really excited to read the book based on the title, and then I also read The Love Losers also, so I love that one as well. But I don't know, I love Christmas. That's my favorite season, so it was so cute and so unique, and I love that it has like the little mysteries in there, and then like the whole fact of like the thief aspect of it. And I was like, this is so great. It's just like a perfect twist to Christmas. So I really enjoyed it.
Well, it's my favorite season too. I love reading holiday books, and this one was just so much fun to work on. It just gets me into the holiday spirit too.
Yeah. Yeah, I've actually I recommended it to a couple of my book club friends, and so they added it to their TBR. And then one of my other friends who has not read a lot of anything out of the fantasy realm, I was like, well, this is a good one to like dip your toe into and get you into the holiday spirit, and then you can like go down the rabbit hole from there. So I'm excited to have her read it and see what she thinks.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Of course. So when you're writing, how do you go about picking locations? Is it somewhere that you've traveled that you use as your inspiration when you're writing the stories?
So a lot of my books are set in Western North Carolina and Asheville, and that's where I've lived for the past like 11 years. I just love
Mhm.
this area. It's so beautiful. For this book, I knew I was going to set it somewhere different, and I actually went to William and Mary in Williamsburg. So I had lived there for 4 years, definitely, felt like home in a lot of ways. So this summer, I was there. I was in Norfolk for a book signing, and we stayed in Williamsburg, and we're hanging out at the school and everything. And I was like, at that point, planning for this book, ready to start writing it soon. And I was like, it needs to be here. This is like so obvious because
Yeah.
I remembered like what a big deal Christmas is there, how much they decorate, and it just seemed like a fun vibe for the story. And that's why I decided to set this one there.
Loved it. And like, oh my golly, I'm blanking on his name right now. The side character that plays the trumpet, or like the
Jeremy.
Jeremy. Yes, Jeremy. I was like Jacob. I'm like, no, it's not that.
Jeremy.
Jeremy. I love him. Like, I don't want to spoil anything, but the whole song he does at the scene that I'm not going to spoil was epic. Like, so epic. I was like, I would love to see that in real life, like with some jerk of a guy walking and someone following him and doing that. That would be hilarious. So I loved that.
He, like, kind of surprised me because I wasn't really planning on having him as a character, and I was, like, sort of, midway through writing or maybe about a third, and I was like, it's in Williamsburg. I need to have some historical characters, historical interpreters. And I had already written that beginning scene with the proposal, and I was like, oh, I like this. It kind of grew from there. And, he ended up having a little sub romance, which I love.
Love that. Are you going to write more in this realm with these characters, or are you kind of done?
Sure. I mean, so the hero of this book, Ryan, his brother Jake has a book in my Unlucky in Love series, and that's kind of how I got the idea to write about Ryan. This one is a total standalone, but it just got me interested in their background, and so yeah, I already have like that series. This one I might return in some way at some point, but I do have a different Christmas book planned for 2025. It might be a short story update or, I don't know.
Yeah, I would love to see Joe, and I always love to see like later on down the road and everybody's still happy and like time has passed.
I'll send you the link for that.
That's awesome. I love that character. The whole book, like it was just perfect. You just did such a good job with it, and it was so like all the vibes of like the Hallmark warm cozy vibes, but with the spice and with the like more mysterious and like that vibe of it too, because of all the backstory of like what's going on and who's doing what and stuff like that. So it was really good.
Yeah, thank you. I kind of wanted, Ryan has this sort of darker past, and I kind of wanted to have it so that not only this is his redemption, but that he, like, the past that's made him who he is makes it possible for him to deal with this situation and help Annabelle
Yeah.
and all of her friends.
Yeah, no, I loved it. I loved all the covert thing. Like, oh, everybody just read the book. I don't want to spoil anything. And if I keep talking about it, I will. So just read the book and then talk to me about it because I would love to go down the rabbit hole with you about how great the book is. So definitely do that. So when you're planning out a story, do you do like a mood board or an outline, or are you more like a pantser?
So I usually have just kind of a general direction, maybe like a page of notes or something, or just even in my head, because I have a pretty good memory for these things. Like I have a direction of where I think the story will go, but I'm very much someone who, like, as I'm writing, a lot of ideas come to me. So definite pantser. And then, go back and add things and revise as I go, because I feel like that just like makes the story a little bit more exciting and organic for me, like as I'm writing it. And, a lot of times I might have an idea for a character and they end up being a little different than I thought they would be in my head. And that like changes the story on its own.
Yeah. So when characters come to you, do they come in kind of really loud, or do they come in more like you see the scene and then they're like kind of foggy and you fill them in?
Usually they come to you with like a kind of a personality already. I don't know. It's hard to explain, honestly. As far as like Annabelle, the heroine for this one, I already knew who Ryan was going in. He was the idea. Like I had this idea about the whole thing, the ornament and everything, and then everything kind of grew from there. And Annabelle, I went through adult diagnosis because my daughter is on the spectrum and I'm on the spectrum too. So I felt that was very interesting and it was kind of on my mind. I just was like at night, like about to sleep. I'm like, oh my gosh, I want her to be on the spectrum and I want like her special interest to be Christmas and she's going to have all these Santa Clauses. So I like had that idea in the middle of the night, wrote it down on my phone, and I'm like, it still seemed like a good idea in the mornings.
I love that. When I read that part of the book, so my grandmother used to make porcelain dolls, and she had a room that was literally filled with, I want to say, close to 60 dolls, and it was the guest room. And I always had to sleep in there. So when that like whole little part when you were describing like all the people coming in and like glancing at the Santa Clauses and like running up the stairs, I'm like, oh my God, that was my childhood. So I love that part so much because it was just dolls instead of Santa Clauses, but it was that same like creepy eyes everywhere following you around feeling. And I totally got that vibe when I read it. So I thought that was so cute.
I had some aunts who had doll rooms. I feel like this is like something in the Italian American community too, because like I had like several aunts who had like those porcelain doll rooms.
Yeah.
So that was sort of also in the back of my mind.
Yeah, it's like we're all traumatized from like porcelain dolls and they all come back out as adults and we're like, so how have you celebrated your milestones with your writing journey?
Done anything like super special in terms of celebrating when I finish a book or anything, but I was actually looking back today as I was writing my newsletter and I'm like, wow, I published a lot of books this year. And it was like, a moment just like holding the stack of my books. I'm like, I feel very proud of this. Well,
Awesome. That's
more like in those small ways. It's funny because I don't live near a writing community or anything. None of my friends here in town are authors. I do have some author friends, like my friend Denise, who I co-wrote a bunch of series with, and we did get together in November and had like a little retreat and listened to the name is like blanking. Oh, Romance Mastermind. We listened to the Romance Mastermind lectures together and had like this little retreat. So that was a lot of fun.
that's wonderful. That's really, really great. So how is it co-writing with someone?
I really enjoyed it. I miss it in some ways because it's like nice building off of each other. But she's been focusing more on her mystery books, and I am still very firmly like rom-com, even though I always love sneaking in a little mystery.
Yeah. Is that like you each pick one of the characters and you write that and then you like mesh
That's
them
how we write
together?
it. Yeah, that's how we did it. So
Yeah.
she would like, one of us would be the hero and one of us would be the heroine. And then, we would like, I'm also my background is in developmental editing. So it was easy for me to kind of like try to make the tone a little bit,
Yeah. So
similar
it like
across.
molds together.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So, this is kind of a more fun question. So, what is your favorite snack and drink while you're writing?
Well, I have like a serious addiction to kombucha. Like I seriously cannot get enough kombucha. So I'd say that would be my drink of choice. I love like having something that's like little pieces like to snack on because it takes a while. So like pretzels or something like that. Although I have a new computer, so I am trying to be very good about not eating near my computer right now. It'll last for like, a few
Yeah,
months and then I'll be
for a few
totally
months. Yes. I tried that.
best laid plans.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So, kind of piggybacking off of your stack of all the books you've written, is there like a specific moment, maybe besides that, where you felt really proud or you're like, whoa, I did this? Like, was there any other kind of moment you had like that?
I think when I finished this book, actually, I'm sure you've heard about like how we got hit really hard by the hurricane Helene, and so I actually wrote like half of this book while I was living in my parents' basement for a month because like the school was closed, so we went up there. I went to Charlottesville to stay with them, and we had no water for like a few weeks. So I went and stayed with them, and my daughter actually attended school there for a month, which was like really helpful for me in terms of working. Yeah, and that's where I finished the book. So I was really proud of myself that I got it done, and it was also like I was just really like happy with it, and it like kind of helped me to be it's like such a I feel like it's a really happy book, and just being in that space while I was going through that experience really helped me like feel, more upbeat.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, that was it's been a lot of storms lately that have really devastated a lot of people and displaced them. It's just crazy. I mean, I know it can do it at any year in time, but it feels like this year has been a lot more like we had a few years back where it's just a lot in a concentrated area. So,
Absolutely. Yeah.
so does writing energize you or does it make you tired?
It energizes me most of the time. I mean, there are times when you kind of sit at your keyboard and you're like, I don't know what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
And usually the best way through it is to just like throw something at the wall. And like if it doesn't work, it might like bring up another idea or like, go for a walk or something and kind of think it over and hopefully it'll come to you. But most of the time it energizes me because it's the part of the job that I love. I mean, there's a lot of other parts as well.
Yeah. So do you ever come across like a writer's block with your writing?
I wouldn't say I've had the serious writer's block. There are some projects that have caused me, have been a little bit more difficult for me than others. Um, the Love Losers, which I wrote over the summer, that took me a little more time. Part of it was just, my daughter was on summer vacation and she had camps, but it was kind of irregular. And then also my dog passed away, and that kind of affected me like emotionally, like I think more than I was willing to like admit to myself.
Yeah. Well, they're a part of your family. Like
Yeah.
they have a big role, even though a lot of people, I always get so frustrated when people are like, oh, it's just an animal. It's like, no, it's not. They're part of my family. No. So it definitely can have a big impact on you. Do you feel like you have anything that's like a kryptonite for you with writing?
Like it more like I think every writer would say like sometimes if you back yourself into a corner, like most of the time you set up the books you have coming in older books. So sometimes it's like you say, so it's like, well, I don't really want that to be how it is anymore, but it's like already out there, which I haven't really let slow me down. Sometimes it's just like, okay, now this is their book though, so this is how it is.
Yeah. Yeah, that I always wonder like with when we write sequels or build off of, because you usually do a teaser, like what if the characters decide like when you start writing, oh, we're not doing that and we're going way over here, and like how authors combat that, like if they let them lead or do they like meet in the middle or they like force them back this way like we're going this way. So is that a struggle usually?
Really, because I, as a it's not a struggle, but it's like as I am like, I'm in this last book of the Unlucky in Love series that is what I'm writing right now, The Love Destroyers. And I'm like, I've decided to kind of add as a side character to introduce the heroine for like the next series that I'm going to be writing. So it's like I don't know how far to go based on where I'm going to want to begin the next book. So it's just like, the balance between creating interest and not painting yourself into a corner.
Yeah, yeah, it's a fine line to walk on for sure. So if you could go back in time and speak to your younger writing self, knowing what you know now, would you tell yourself something different to do or any advice?
Not anything different, but, definitely don't bother looking at bad reviews. That's not going to help anyone. I mean, I'm sure some of them have helpful information in them, but it's like I feel like most writers, myself included, can have like be very sensitive about stuff like that. And I mean, and I totally understand that some readers just like, they want to be funny, they want to get things off their chest or whatever. And reviews are for readers. So it's like, yeah, I don't want to go there.
Yeah, because it's like your baby you're putting out in the world, and then when someone says something about them, it's hard.
Yeah, I mean, and like I totally people are, totally allowed to say whatever they want to say. I just don't necessarily want to see it.
Exactly, exactly. So what is like the most difficult thing about writing for you?
The most what?
Difficult thing about the writing for you?
The writing itself is not the most difficult part of, being my job as like, independently published author because it's like the promo and the marketing and all that. That I find the most difficult. It's like in terms of writing though, I think like getting on a schedule is sometimes hard. I work from home and so it's like whenever there's anything happening at the house or any appointments need to happen, it's like, falls in the middle of the day. And I'm somebody who has like that intense kind of hyper focus. So if something happens in the middle of the day, it could kind of throw me off.
Yeah, yeah. I feel you there on that for sure. So on the flip side, what is your most favorite part about
Kind of getting lost in it and like, just having an idea and then being able to make that idea happen. I think that's like the most amazing part of being an author. It's like you just have a little idea in your head and then suddenly you're holding a book.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
that's got to be a really incredible feeling.
Yeah.
So when you are writing the opposite sex, is that difficult for you to get into their headspace?
No, I kind of love writing for the guys. Sometimes I'm like writing, write like a couple of chapters and I'm starting the next one and it's still him. I'm like, okay, I gotta switch.
And then you have to like go back and fill in so that it's like the balance of the both.
Yeah. Well, sometimes, yeah, I'll add in a chapter later. I'm like, oh, this was too many or whatever. But no, I usually really, really enjoy it, actually. I mean, I really enjoy writing for women as well. But like, I think it's like, can be really fun to write for the guys.
Yeah. Yeah. So what is the hardest type of scene for you to write?
The emotionally hard scenes can be difficult to write. Sometimes sex scenes take a while too, just because if you've like been an author for a while, written a lot of books, you don't want them all to be the same. So like coming up with an idea to make it seem like unique or whatever, that can be harder as you've written like a lot of different things, to make sure that it's not repetitive.
Yeah. So then on the flip side, what's your most favorite scene to write?
I love banter. Banter scenes are my favorite, probably. I also love like kind of rom-com hijinks, like everything gone wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, those are my favorite. I just because then you were like go like this with your own like book and you're like putting the head in the book and you like have that like secondary embarrassment for like whatever's gone on and gone awry in the story. It's just
Yeah.
so good. So who inspired you to, start writing? I know you said you did copy editing. Do you still do that now?
So I do developmental. It's developmental
Developmental.
editing. So it's like, just basically story edits, but I also did some line editing. I still do a little bit. I'm almost totally full-time as a writer. So the person who inspired me was definitely Denise Grover Swank, who I wrote the first, Asheville Brewing with. And then, we wrote two other series. And I've always kind of wanted to be a writer and like have always been in the book sphere, but I think it's hard to take that step and just say, this is something I'm going to do. I can do this. And she just really was very supportive of me and wanted to write that series together. We had written another project together, which we haven't published yet. It needs some reworking. And yeah, and it kind of grew from there. We started that first book right before the pandemic hit. So we wrote the first, the 4 books in that series pretty quickly because it was like kind of this fun escape for us.
Yeah.
And after that, it's just like once you start writing, it's like if I go a day without writing, like I get like kind of grumpy.
Wait, that's awesome. That's really great that you found your passion and that you're able to do it almost full time. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Out of all of your characters, are any of them like out of the guys, are any of them like your ideal of what a book boyfriend would be?
I think Ryan is from this book. I like absolutely love him. Probably my 2 favorite of my book boyfriends, which it is extremely hard to choose and it does shift. Like, it always is a little bit whoever I'm writing at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So right now I'm writing the last book in that the Unlucky in Love series, and the last hero is Seamus, and he's kind of like another sort of, I love reformed bad boys. They're like my favorite.
Mine too.
Absolutely love them. So there are a lot of those in my books. My favorite 2 right now, besides the one I'm writing, are Ryan and then Leonard in You're So Bad, which is like has been my most successful book. And I love him, not just because it's my biggest book, but Ryan though I think is the best of the book boyfriends because he's just like like so attentive and sweet, but he's also got like that hard edge.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I think he's got like a great sense of humor too.
Yes. And then again, I don't want to give anything away, but when with Joe, that whole part with Joe, I was like, oh, I loved that scene so much. Like, so good. So he like shot up to the top at that scene for me because I was like, that is so cool. I love that.
I was like, did they have better chemistry than Ryan and Annabelle? Because I was like reading this banter and I'm like, okay, I have to go back and amp up like Ryan and Annabelle to like match this energy.
Yes, exactly. But it was so, again, like I said earlier, it was epic. Like you had so many epic moments in this book that I'm just like totally fangirling over here. Like I'm like, this is awesome. So I really loved that part too. There are so many parts of this book. Like I could go on and on for a while about that book. It was so good. So out of all of your characters, who is most like you?
Like a lot of them have little pieces of me, I would say. I think like maybe Marnie in A Borrowed Boyfriend, that heroine is somewhat similar to me. But I also like have this character, Nicole, like in a lot of my books, who's like this chaos character. And she just kind of says whatever she's thinking or whatever. Like she's a little piece of me too.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely like that. I have no filter sometimes, and I'm like, I just say that out loud, so I totally get it. I'll have to check those 2 out. I haven't read those 2 yet, but I've been slowly adding more books to my TBR that I've like scrolled through after I read the other 2 books, The Love Losers and the Christmas one. So I've definitely been like adding more. My TBR just gets longer and longer and longer every day with all the books that I find and discover with like new authors that I like highly enjoy, and I just want to read all their stuff. And then I always reach out when I love a book, so I'm like, can I interview you because you're amazing? And so I always like to give people like this channel is kind of where you get a look behind the book so that they can totally fall down the rabbit hole with me in fangirling over an author. So do you have a favorite trope that you like to read? And then do you have a favorite trope that you like to write? Or they maybe both?
So, I mean, they're both probably similar because, usually the things we enjoy consuming. I really like the enemies to lovers banter. I don't really like it when they're like literally enemies though, which seems to be like kind of where things have been going these days. Like if they're not like literal, they want to kill each other. People are like, they're not enemies.
Yeah.
I kind of like the old fashioned kind of enemies to lovers, just like with the quick quippy banter. I love that. And I also adore like writing fake dating, fake relationship stories. Those are always so much fun.
Yeah, those are really great. Have you had a trope that you haven't had an opportunity to write yet that you'd like to?
I'm not sure. Like I haven't. I do. I guess like kind of like forbidden or so, like I'm not going to write like, not like go extreme with that or whatever, but the next book, next series I'm writing, the first book, it'll be like her ex's brother. So that's like sort of a little bit like that.
Forbidden romance kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I haven't ever written like pregnancy or big age gap or anything like that. I can't really foresee myself doing that though.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool though. I'm excited to see the next series. I love the forbidden romance trope. It's got so many perfect ways to set up a story. So when you're writing, do you usually know if you're going to add like a certain plot twist or a certain like big moment, or does it kind of come leading up as you're writing it?
I mean, I always kind of like to have at least one. A lot of the times it comes to me as I'm writing. Sometimes I know at the beginning what that will be. But yeah, a lot of times like the details will come to me as I'm going along.
So what type of character is your favorite to write? Like archetype? Like do you have a specific one that you enjoy more than others?
Reform bad boy.
Yeah, those are fun. So let me go down here. Sorry. So with being a mom, how do you find the time to write? Do you have like a daily schedule you keep to, or you just kind of fill in as you go?
Well, my daughter's in school, and in an after school program. So, like after I go pick her up, like I'm done for the day unless I do some work at night, which I often do. But yeah, like she's in school during the day. She's a first grader.
So you get, do you have like a writing, I want to get X amount of scenes done or X amount of chapters or a word count, or you just kind of go with the flow as you're writing?
Don't really do that. Yeah, I more go with the flow, see how much I get done. I have an idea of like, that today I at least want to get like 3 to 5,000 done or something. Usually it's not that good lately, but sometimes I have a really good day, and I can get like 6,000 written or something. But yeah, like I will have like a vague goal maybe in my head, but I don't have anything that I like, try to adhere to, because sometimes it just doesn't happen, and like having a goal is not going to help like that happen. What does help is that got like a spreadsheet going like with Denise, and we like write our daily word count down, and that kind of just helps in terms of like I can look at it and be like, oh, this is how much I got done like over the week or whatever.
Oh, that's wonderful. It's like a track to see how much you've progressed, to give you like that like boost of confidence to keep going kind of. Yeah. Oh, that's great. It's good that you have like a writing partner or somebody who like, not necessarily holds you accountable, but like helps celebrate the little milestones you make along the way.
Yeah, totally. And somebody like to bounce things off of as you're, going along.
Yeah, if you get stuck. So how long does it take you to finish a book once you get an idea to when like we get it in our hand?
To finish it, like I could write a first draft in like I'd say like a month and a half. And then I do my self edit, send it to my editor. Usually I can, address their edits within like a few days, and it goes to proofreading, and then at that point it goes to arcs. So I do try to bring out at least 4 books a year. This year was a big year. It was 5 books and a novella, which but the first book obviously was written last year.
Yeah. Wow, that's awesome. That's a big accomplishment in a shortest span of time. Like that's a lot of books to put out in a year.
I was like, no wonder I have felt so stressed and short on time.
Yeah, for sure. It always boggles my mind when I talk to authors where they've put out multiple books, and I'm just like, how do they do that? Like it's got to be a lot of work for sure to do that.
The writing side, like I said, I just love. So I mean, to me, that's like what I do for fun too. I just, it happens to be a big part of my job, thankfully.
Yeah, that's great. It's good that you're passionate about it because you love it, so it doesn't feel probably like work. It just feels like you're,
unless it's one of those days and you're like, oh God, nothing's happening.
yeah. So with designing the covers, do you enjoy that process, or does it kind of make you anxious?
Well, it's just, it's one of those things where, sometimes you have this idea in your head and you like it, and then sometimes it just doesn't work. Like that part is anxious. It makes me anxious, is stressful. But it's kind of cool, like bringing a concept to like your designer and like, seeing what comes of it. A lot of times I'm just like so super impressed, that they're able to like come up with this awesome image, like based on just something I said.
Yeah.
So for like this book, for example, like I have the paperback here. I love the paperback cover, and this was the ebook cover too at first, and it was like not really picking up traction in Kindle Unlimited. So I tried like a different ebook cover, which has done a lot better like in Kindle Unlimited.
Ebook cover. I wish I could get the ebook cover. I like that cover too. It's super cute, but I don't know. Like I have tattoos, so I was like the tattoos, and I like the way he's standing, and I'm like, I love this cover.
I feel like it does really work for just because for the title and the concept.
Yeah.
I mean, it is really a very kind of cozy romance, but at the same time, he is this person who has like a criminal background. So I actually had that image when I was thinking of like having a new ebook cover made. I'm like, of the big arms and like the hat, and it was like my designer kept showing like cutting off most of the face but not all of it. I'm like, no, nothing. And I like just cropped it and I said it to him, this is what I want.
I think it's so good because like you don't see his face, so us as the reader can kind of like fill it in with what we want, but you see like the body and the tattoos, and so it like gives the like what you need to know when you start the book, and it just, I love it. It was very good.
Yeah, that was a good move. It turned out, sometimes you just don't know. You got to kind of try a few things and see what works out.
Yeah, for sure. So in your opinion, what do you feel like makes a great story?
I really like having just kind of fully fleshed out characters. Like to me, the characters are the most important thing, because if I care about somebody, then I'm happy to go down like any rabbit hole with them. But if I don't care about them or I'm not interested by them, like I care a little bit less. Like, some of my husband, like I also really like some sci-fi, and my husband really likes a lot of sci-fi. And some of the books like are very character driven like that, and those are the ones that I like. And others like have this great plot, but like the characters could literally be anyone, and it's like just hard for me to kind of get into a book like that.
Yeah. I feel like you have to have that connection in order to like fully fall into the story. Like there has to be that like hook that like gets you to really fully immerse yourself in a story, for sure. So what is the most surprising thing you've learned on this writing journey?
I guess maybe just that, the first time like I wrote a book, I'm like, didn't know if I could do it, and the first one we wrote, like we actually spent a long time working on, and then, like I have a pretty big body of work now, and like, even just this past year, and just like kind of figuring out like I can do this, that I think that was a big thing for me. Another thing is it's always very strange for me to like meet people that have read my books, or to hear from somebody whose name I've never seen like in my group or like my newsletter or anything, tell me that they've loved my books, because it's like I know factually that there are a lot of people out there reading them, from the sales information and everything, but it's kind of hard to believe it in a weird sense.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. I've heard other authors say it's like an imposter. They struggle with imposter syndrome. Like they feel like it's a weird concept to wrap around at first, like learning people love your work.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's wonderful to hear, obviously, but yeah, it's very humbling.
So have you done signings to where you get to meet more of a broad spectrum of people?
I've done a few. I actually was lucky enough to go to the last book bonanza this year.
I want to go there so bad.
It was really fun. I get a little overwhelmed in like the conference room, like with all the kind of buzz of talking and everything. So I don't know how many I'm gonna do moving forward. I did 3 this year, which was too much for me. So we'll see how many I end up doing in the future. Right now I have like in 2026, I'm going back to SAS, which I did this summer, and that's going to be in Richmond, which I'm excited about because I have like family and friends there.
Yeah. Well, that'll be fun. So you can unwind with them after you do the signing
Yeah.
and see them. Do you grab any of your characters' personalities from people in your life, or are they just totally strictly from, your creativity?
I don't think I grab their personalities. There are some people, there are a couple of characters who resemble people I know a little more than others, or just like, characteristics. One of my other Christmas books, Jingle Bell Hell, the heroine like had like a pretty similar situation in life to my sister at the time that I was writing it, because she was also a single mom. She had two sons instead of one, but like, otherwise somewhat similar. So I used some of her, like a couple of her stories and a little bit of her personality in that one. So I think in the dedication, I was like, and to my sister for letting me shamelessly mine her life.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. That's great. I'll have to read that one. I'm all in a Christmas mode right now, just absorbing as much as I can and reading it because it
Yeah,
just.
me too.
So, who are some writers that you enjoy reading?
I like kind of like a broad spectrum, like not just romance authors. I mean, obviously for romance, like love Lucy Score. I actually I love some of Rainbow Rowell's books are like my favorite. Like Fangirl is like one of my favorite books like ever. I've read it so many times. I actually love like Stephen King. I love reading mysteries too. So I kind of like go all across the board. I mean, I love Denise's books, Denise Gerber Swain. And it's always fun to have author friends because you get to read things early.
Yeah, yeah, that's really fun. I've been very honored in the fact that I get to read stuff before it's come out, and it's
Yeah.
been such a fun experience and journey. For you, we kind of talked about this with writing, but what is like your most favorite part about being a writer?
I think just being able to, spend all day like working on books and like my own books is even better. But like my whole like career, like I've been able to do like just surround myself with books and like make that my life. And I mean, growing up, like all I ever did was read basically. So it's kind of amazing to actually get to like do that and like kind of steep myself in that. I know, not everybody gets to have their biggest interest be their career. So that's been amazing. And just seeing like sometimes like just seeing like the art, the cover art, and or seeing other people, when people make graphics with your book or like make cuts with it, like seeing that like makes it feel so real and like awesome. I don't know.
Yeah. Yes, I bet it's a good feeling for sure. So, what were some books that you enjoyed as a child? Do you have any that really stick out to you?
I went through like so I used to actually read. I read like The Stand when I was 11. Like, or like read like everything. I read like I realized like now it's probably kind of problematic, but like I read Island of the Blue Dolphins like 7 times. There's like this there's one I didn't really read Sweet Valley High, but there was one like Christmas special called like The Magic Christmas, which I recently found like in one of my old boxes. And my sister and I read that. Like I read it like 8 or 9 times or something. It's like falling apart. Because it was like, there was like a magical element. I used to read like Barbara Michaels. Those are really kind of they're kind of like a little bit gothic-y romance kind of thing. I don't know. I inhaled those, read all of Kurt Vonnegut. I read like everything.
It's always fun to like go back. I recently read The Giver again after reading it as a child, and I was like, ooh, this is very different from when I read it as a child. I did not pick up on a lot of this stuff.
I don't think I have read that since I was a child. It'd be interesting to go
You
back.
should totally do it. I was like reading and I was like, wow. I was like,
Yeah.
what does this say about me now? Because I like that was one of my favorite books as a kid, and like reading it as an adult, and I was like, like just like that moment of like, whoa. I highly recommend it. Interesting going back to books that like I'm reading to my daughter now, books I read when I was a kid.
I love that. Yeah.
And then like hearing them as an adult, like you pick on things that you didn't ever catch on. It's very fascinating. I highly recommend doing it because you get a different perspective on things. How has publishing changed for you since you did that first book, that duet writing, and to what you do now? Has it changed a lot? Have you mixed up how you do stuff?
That it's changed that. I mean, like, it's a constantly evolving thing. There's definitely more people like in the indie sphere like every year, I would say. And and also trends change, what people are interested and what they want to read. I've kind of stayed like somewhat, consistent in what I'm writing just because it's like I just love the humor aspect. I can't like write something without humor. But yeah, like kind of staying up on that and kind of seeing myself where like, which hooks seem to work really well and how I can recreate that but do it differently. That's kind of so, and that's something where like TikTok and Reels and stuff has made a big impact. Of course, who knows what's happening with TikTok? It might be gone.
Yeah. Yeah. So with your writing, when you are coming up with a new idea, do you usually spend a lot of time before you're releasing it to like create those things or create like teasers, or do you just kind of do it as you're going?
So I'm gonna try to be like a little more methodical about it in the future. Usually for the first book in a series, I always give myself a lot longer to write it. Because you're not just writing that book, you're setting up like any other books you write in that series. Like, even though, I always write, standalones, but they're, interconnected. Sometimes, you need like some consistency across the board. So it's like in the first book of this next series, I'm going to be introducing all the heroines for the other ones, because my new series is going to be the setup is that the woman finds out that it's going to be a return to the brewery sphere. She finds out that her fiance is dating 3 other women and none of them know about each other. So those are going to be like the 4 heroines of the series. They're going to become friends and kind of like, get even a little bit on him. So the first book is like best served cold because it's a brewery romance, but also
Yeah,
about like a little bit revenge.
I love that.
It's the one where she's gonna like fake date his brother to get back at him because he hates his brother.
Yeah. Ooh, that's gonna be so good. I'm excited to read those. That'll be great. So do you create like I know you said you keep a lot, you were saying in your head, but do you create like a log of everything so that like you can reference back as you're writing interconnected series?
I probably should, but I do not. I do have a very excellent memory, so usually I am correct about like I can remember things and like keep it sorted, but no, I should definitely be more organized. That is constantly my like New Year's resolution and it never happens.
In the same way, I think we talked about it with like our minds forget things, and like I'll set an alarm on something, and even though I set the alarm, like I'll still like miss something every now and again, and I'm like, oh, how do I do that? And I'm like, every year my goal is like be more organized, write it down. I buy a pretty planner, and then I don't use the planner.
This is the second year running that I've done that. Next year it's going to happen.
Exactly. So when you are doing your writing, do you ever stop and like do things to like hone your craft more, or do like educational type things to be, a better writer?
I did that romance mastermind conference with Denise, and that was very interesting. Sometimes though, like I like worry about like kind of delving too deeply into that stuff because it's like I feel like that could potentially give you writer's block if you overthink it too much, because so much of what you do as a writer is organic, and I just don't want to like overthink things to the point where I'm not able to like tap into that creativity, because I think because my creativity comes like a lot of it as a pantser, it's like hard to kind of be like, this is what needs to happen. These are the, I do have a sense of what tropes I'm doing and stuff, but like having actual scenes that you can pull like to use like for hooks and stuff, that's kind of hard. I mean, I think like you can consciously create hooks like as you're going or like go back later and put them in, but to like start there and then develop around that, I feel like is something I can't really do.
Yeah. So then for your characters, do you ever do like a character profile, or do you kind of just keep it all up in your head?
Kind of keep it all up in my head.
Had to be hard, right? Or is it like little file cabinets, like organized everything so that you
I think
take
it's
it out?
because I'm autistic. Like it's very like I don't know. I don't think it's not hard for me.
Yeah, I love.
A lot of other things in life are hard for me, but not that.
Yeah, no, I love. So I talked to you briefly about my son. My son is he has Gestalt language processing disorders, and he also is like photographic memory. So he'll watch a movie one time, he'll know the entire movie, including the sound effects, and then he'll use lines from said movie and use it in a functional way in a conversation to express his needs, and it just floors me. Like
Yeah.
the way the mind works for people on the spectrum is just incredible. Like to remember all that. I'm like Dory. I'll forget it like 10 seconds later.
My daughter learning language was somewhat similar. Yeah, she would memorize like a book or something, and like as she was, because she just learned how to speak differently, and then she would just like randomly say like the whole like the whole book or something. I was like, okay.
Oh yeah, my son does that. Like he'll be sitting in the car and like read me without the book in front of him the whole Brown Bear book, and I'm like, wow,
That was one of the ones I think when she
yeah, it's crazy, but it's so cool the way the brain works and how they retain stuff and then apply it, to correctly to communicate. It's really really cool. So do you know your love language, and or do you try to incorporate that process of the love languages in your writing with your characters?
yeah, probably acts of service. And yeah, like that. I mean, come on, who doesn't like to see a man perform acts of service?
Yes, exactly. That's my love language, so I love it. Is there something unique and quirky that we maybe don't know about you?
So I had like a pretty I've mentioned this a lot in like all my various like parties and stuff, but I had a pretty unique upbringing. Like I lived partially like I lived in West Africa and East Africa when I was a kid growing up, so for like 7 years. So that was like definitely a different part of my upbringing.
That's cool. Have you been back there since then?
So I went back like several times when I was in college because my parents were still over there. You know, they did like worked and did international work, but they're back in the States now. So I have not been back like for many, many years, like since I was 21 probably, which is a long time. I'm turning 40 this year.
Wow, that's really cool though. Have you used any of that in your writing, or are you going to?
Haven't really. I might at some point, but it's just it's kind of like I don't know how I would do it. I don't know that I would want to set something over in Nairobi or something. You know, it's like I haven't been there in years, and things change
Yeah.
like, constantly.
Yeah.
You know, it's definitely a big part of who I am. I always joke that I'm like Lindsay Lohan in Mean Girls.
I just thought I had to think about that for a second. I'm like, yeah, she's from there in that story. So that's awesome. So do you have a moment now where you like I've made it, or has it not happened yet?
Yeah, I think it'll be hard to get to that point where I just feel like I've made it. Like, I mean, there was a point over the summer where I had like just an extremely good month. I'm like, this is pretty good. This is great. And then like, you know, of course the next couple of months were not as good. So I think I don't know if I have the personality where I'll just be like, I've made it. I can coast, man. I don't have a coasting personality,
Yeah. Always want to do more.
sadly. But I
That's
mean, you
good.
know, I do like even if I financially did not have to write, I still think I would want to.
Yeah. That's your passion. So
Yeah,
it'd
totally.
be, it'd be hard to give that up. So when will we potentially see your next book come out?
So the next one is early February, and that's the last book, The Love Destroyers. And I'm working on that now, getting that finished up. And then after that, the first in the new series, I'm thinking probably May. I was originally going to do it in June and like have a novella or something come out before, but I think I might just leap right into it because I was going to set it up in like a different novella or book, and I'm like, well, actually, it kind of works with this one, so I'm you know, doing that. And I'm also just really want to get started writing it because it's kind of like been in my head for a little while now.
Yeah, I bet that's hard when they're all like yelling at you in your head and you're like, I just need to get them out of there and get on to the next thing. So that's awesome. Well, that's really, really great. So my last question for you is what message would you want readers to take away from after reading your
I just, you know, mostly well, first of all, like I do a lot of found family and people with like different backgrounds and, you know, personal quirks and everything. And the message of like acceptance of each other and found family is definitely something that I have in a lot of my books, I would say. And like finding those people who accept you for who you are and don't want to change you, but maybe want to help you be your best self. And then also just joy, you know, like I hope that my books all bring joy to people.
Oh, I love that. That's really great. Well, they brought me immense joy when I was reading them. I stayed up way too late reading that last one because I didn't want to put it down. I think I stayed up till like 2 or 3 in the morning. So I'm like, this is so good. I don't want to end it. I read at night.
That is like, I don't know why somebody would read one of my books that early, but yeah, like I guess that's imposter.
So for me, I homeschool my kids, and so at night is like my time, and so that's usually when I like dive into my books, and then I'm like, oh, it's like in the middle of the night and I'm still reading, and I'm like, I should probably go to bed. So I definitely do that for sure. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. It was so great getting to know you better and learning more about all of the books that you have available for us to devour and read, and hear about your upcoming books that I'm looking forward to. And I wish you much success and lots of amazing books to come. I'm sure we will have a lot to look forward to from you for next year for sure, it sounds like. So it'll be really exciting.
Thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Of course. Thank you. So please like and subscribe. I linked her information below so you can follow her on Instagram along with her website. And then if you have a book bestie who has not read her books, please share this. Or if you have a bestie that you fangirled over her books with, please share this. And I hope to see you next time as we get another look behind the book.